Hey, it's Paul. I'm a producer on the show. Just wanted to come back with a little bonus episode this afternoon because I had such a great time talking to my friend Andy Kenney from CPR about Prop HH and all the Tabor implications that ballot measure might have. But we ended up just talking more about Tabor and its history and basically all the times that anyone has ever successfully taken a chunk out of it. So please enjoy this short bonus episode and let me know what you think. So we're talking about Tabor, this tax system that Democrats have reviled for many years, but haven't been able to get rid of.
Yep.
But they have tried.
Yes, they have tried.
What happened the last time?
So back in, I think this is 2019, 4 years ago now, Proposition CC was the last big whack at Tabor that anybody really took from the Democratic side.
Huh.
And it would have effectively eliminated the whole idea of a Tabor revenue limit or a Tabor refund, for that matter. It would have said no more refunds ever. State government can just continue to grow its revenues at whatever pace naturally happens. And that's something that Democrats have long argued for because they generally say, like, the general progressive argument is that, like, the whole equation and limit set by Tabor, it's like the revenues can only grow at inflation and population growth. They say it's just not a realistic representation of the needs of government. The economy grows way faster than population plus inflation.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that property taxes here are lower than most other states.
Property taxes here are lower than most other states. And just in general, like, our state's grown so fast, like, economically, that we end up way faster than the revenue limits set by Tabor.
So they made this case to voters back in 2019 pretty directly?
Yeah, so back in 2019, I didn't cover this one closely, but the gist of it was that they wanted to do away with Tabor refunds and the Tabor limit in a major way and spend all that money on schools and transportation, maybe some other stuff instead. And voters just said no. 2019, like, Colorado's pretty blue at that point. And this measure failed by 7 points, so not like a total blowout, but also, you know, this was their big try, and it just didn't work.
Interesting. So that might be why Polis now is wanting to, like, background the Tabor elements of this new Prop HH.
I would safely say, like, that lives in the collective progressive liberal consciousness. Is like what happened last time. It's very hard to take on Tabor head on because people conceptually love the idea of a refund, I think, love the idea of Tabor. Who doesn't like, as I put it in one story, finding like proverbial $20 in their back pocket.
Right.
There is one other time that somebody actually did take a chunk out of Tabor.
Oh.
One Mike Johnston.
Whoa, tell me that story.
Is it Johnston or Johnston?
It's Johnston.
Johnston, thank you. Prop 123 the other year, the affordable housing measure.
Oh, of course, yeah.
That is funded out of the Tabor surplus pool. That is funded with money that would have had to be refunded otherwise. And the way they, I think, managed to pass it was like the language did not emphasize, like, would you like to give up $1 bajillion of Tabor refunds and use it, or whatever. Instead, it was like, should we house firefighters? And like way in like the 80th word or whatever, it was like surplus.
Yeah, interesting. Sounds a lot like, should we lower property taxes?
More or less, yeah. Lead with like what you're giving them.
Yeah.
I think the question with HH will be, like, with this current ballot measure, will be like, voters I've talked to and read their comments online seem skeptical about the idea that, like, wait, so I'm getting a property tax cut, but then you're raising taxes almost as much effectively by taking away my refund. So, like, what's the rub? And I wonder if in the end they'll wish that they had emphasized, well, if there's extra money, it goes to schools. Because I think that people suspect that there's a missing part of this that they're not understanding.
I suspect that.
Like, they're like,
Yeah.
wait, theoretically, this takes away $10 billion in refunds, and we get $10 billion in cuts. So, like, what's the deal? Where's the difference? Well, there's no difference. But, like, what's the deal? Why would I approve that? And, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe it would be more effective to say, hey, if this works out good, extra schools money, because that's true.
Fascinating.
The only other time, Paul, that the biggest chunk anybody ever took out of Tabor was a Republican, actually.
Who? What happened?
Governor Bill Owens. This is in the early 2000s. The state has just gone through the kind of 2000 tech bust. Economies really went downhill. And because of the way the Tabor worked at the time, we don't need to get into the mechanics of it, but basically it put the state budget in real trouble because, like, Tabor, like, cinched down on revenues and they couldn't get it back. And they were looking at truly dire cuts across the board. and
to government services.
Yeah. And so they came up with like, hey, we need to raise the Tabor limit. Like we can't be refunding all this money. Like, this is major cuts we're looking at. And Democrats and Republicans like got together and ran this campaign. I was talking to somebody who was involved recently, and like Republicans ran like the air war, the media advertising campaign, and Democrats like got like unions, I think, and all kinds of Democratic groups together and knocked doors, and like these are like enemies sitting together in a room. Bill Owens got on TV and apparently said like, folks, there's a glitch in Tabor.
A glitch in Tabor.
I don't know if he really talks like that. And it was kind of a glitch. It was like, anyway, we don't need to get into
budget deficit,
all the mechanics
perhaps.
of it. But yeah, and like the state was going to be permanently stuck at like a lower budget level because of the way this recession had happened. And so, it worked, like barely. And what strikes me about that is like you can go look up reports on like how much of an effect did Ref C have? $40 billion since then that the state's been allowed to retain and spend instead of refunding.
And Ref C, that's the vote in 2019 that was going to do away with Tabor.
That's Prop CC. So Ref C, which did pass.
Okay.
Ref C passed back in the early 2000s.
Huh.
Because it passed, the state in like the 20 odd years almost since then, the state's been allowed to keep like $40 billion that it would have had to refund otherwise.
Wow.
And I have a feeling like if that's the way that had been framed from the outset, like, hey, do you want to give up $40 billion in Tabor refunds? People would have said, heck no. Hell no. I'll say it. Hell no. If not, and so what's interesting to me about that is like it raises this question of like, it's really natural to say that you're taking away refunds. Mm-hmm. It's a taking because you are losing out on a future refund. And that just like doesn't fly with voters. Is that the best way to frame it? I don't know. It's the simplest way to frame it. But like, if you flip it on its head and it's like, well, this is about maintaining government services and like the positive of what it is, maybe it has a better chance of passing. I don't know. But the point being, it's really hard. People see those refunds as something that is owed to them, which under Tabor it is. And it's really hard to convince them to give that up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real challenge of political philosophy. Like, what do you want your voters to be deciding on? What was the actual question people think they're answering? What actions do you feel like you have a mandate to take or not? Mm-hmm. The Tabor stuff, as confusing as it is, it's also just very, very interesting what it has done to our state.
Tabor says, trust the voters. And the critique of Tabor is like, human nature is going to make the voters like lean one way or another. Is going to make with human nature, like people just instinctively say no when you ask them to pay higher taxes or do this and that. Conservatives say that's why we shouldn't raise taxes. Liberals say, well, they're not seeing the big picture. Liberals say people also want good schools and this and that. And liberals say we need taxes for that. And so it's quite a conundrum.
And that's the fight. And that's the fight we'll keep having.
The cookie crumbles.
Well, thanks, Andy.
Yeah, thank you.